So as you guys saw, we're going to be talking about public-private partnerships and hearing from some private businesses here. I'm going to hand it over very quickly to our friends at Intel and Maricopa Community Colleges, who are going to talk about their partnership on creating the first associates and certificate program for AI. And then I'm going to hand it over to Jen, who's going to hand it over to Walmart to talk a little bit about how they've been adjusting during COVID-19 and some interesting initiatives they're undertaking. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over first to Carlos Contreras, who's the Senior Director of State Government Affairs of Emerging Technologies at Intel. And then later, we're also going to hear from Dr. Stephen Gonzalez, who's a member of the Arizona State team for the network. He's the Interim Chancellor at Maricopa Community Colleges. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Carlos.
Oh, thank you. Good morning, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I want to thank NGA for this opportunity to present with Dr. Gonzalez. I want to share a really fantastic partnership that we began a few months ago and answer your questions. I didn't include a lot of details of the curriculum. We thought it would be super important for you guys to understand how our partnership works, talk a little bit about why we're doing this work and why it's important. And if we want to get more into the curriculum in terms of what's the associates program, we can do follow-up meetings with any of you, and we put our contact information at the end of the presentation. So thank you, Rachel, for introducing us. I'll get going here. So from an Intel perspective, why are we doing this program? We have some goals, like many of the companies that do CSR work. Ours happen to be around technology because we are a technology company. And our goals around this program is making it inclusive and expanding the digital readiness in terms of this technology. We see that gap. We want to be able to close that gap. And with every single new technology that comes around, it's an opportunity to you either close the gap or it gets wider, right? So this is an opportunity for us to close that digital divide and expand access, not only to the technology, but the skills that are going to be needed for current and future jobs. And we've committed to, by 2030, to partner with 30 countries, 30,000 institutions, 30 million people, because we are a global company. We're up to about 12 countries now. Last week, we actually launched this program with the government of Israel. So what about AI? So I think the main thing here, what AI is and what it does, it's really a collection of different technologies. Some of these technologies are already in use by consumers. You use them every time that you tag somebody and it identifies faces. If you get into a car and it has technologies like lane keeping assist and automatic braking, it's already a form of machine learning and artificial intelligence. But it's really what enables this machines enabled to learn from experiences using data, right? So that's the key word, is in terms of a lot of data to be able to build these programs and to mimic or perform the cognitive functions that are associated with what we do with humans, right? We can identify objects very easily. We can tell whether it's a car, a dog, a cat, a road, right? And teaching a machine to do that by using data is really what's behind this technology. The other thing that's important here, and we'll talk more about this, is a lot of this technology is going very quickly. It's going from lab to application at very, very fast pace. And this is why it's so important for companies and educational institutions like Maricopa, right, to kind of come together and form these partnerships, because the speed in terms of how this technology is evolving and how the job skills are changing is very, very fast. Okay, and I know a lot of you have seen this in terms of AI. This is before COVID, and with COVID, it's actually gotten worse in terms of disruption. So automation is a big thing in terms of this technology, right? So it has the ability to quickly automate functions that are very repetitive, and kind of provide job aids for the folks that are doing the work. There's been numerous studies about how many jobs are going to be displaced, big numbers out there. And then with COVID, right, we're kind of seeing folks come back into places like community colleges to get reskilled. So we want to make sure that when they go back, they're actually getting skilled in areas that are growing and there's a market demand for it. And we certainly see that for AI. Maricopa's done some analysis on this in terms of the demand gap. I think the one thing about this technology that's a little bit different is that it's pervasive in different job areas, and Dr. Gonzalez will talk about that. The other thing that's super important here is the problems that can occur if we have the same people developing the technology that and it doesn't open up for more diversity, right? So we want as many people, from an Intel perspective, we want as many people to be able to understand the technology, to design with the technology, because we want to have that diversity of thought in terms of the applications and in terms of how the technology is used. And then lastly here, the other thing that's different about this technology is there are some ethical implications around its use. Certainly there's some regulations, there's some states that have been very active in this space. The transparency of the algorithms in terms of what's in there, the biases that need to be looked at, the fairness, can you explain it, right? So these are really tough issues, and we don't want to shy away from those issues. And we want people, workers, technicians, anyone that's dealing with this technology to understand those ethical issues. Normally not a subject area for engineers to talk about ethics, but this is, or folks that are technical, but this is really a requirement for the technology. It's as important as learning the technologies to understand from a society perspective what impact it has. And lastly here, the interdisciplinary nature of this technology, and we'll talk a bit more about that. We certainly see it in different fields. And so we thought when we approached Maricopa, and Maricopa was in the same space as we were, right? We saw this wave coming, and we needed to partner now before it's too late. And this is one of those tidal waves that you kind of have to get in front of, and we see enough signals in the environment to know that we need to get in front of it. Okay, Rachel, and can you play the video, please?
Yep, 1 second.
Intel chose Maricopa Community College District to go ahead and be the first in the United States to use their curriculum for AI.
AI can be used from fashion to finance.
And it's the combining of human capabilities with machine capabilities.
In the industry, we'll be utilizing AI.
So this program is a joint effort between us, Maricopa Community College District, Chandler Gilbert, and Estrella Mountain. It's a joint effort to offer the first associate degree in the nation in artificial intelligence and machine learning.
That we're teaching what's relevant. We're teaching the newest technology. So the opportunity to provide this for our students will be really good for the district, for Maricopa County, and for the state of Arizona.
What does the industry need? Okay, and so when we're partnering with Intel, we know what the industry is looking for and what they require for their employees. They're going to have the right skills that are needed.
It's driven by the industry. It's worked the industry and faculty together in developing the courses, developing the program.
The one thing Maricopa Community Colleges is doing is just jumping head in and saying, hey, what do we need to do to get this done? How are we going to make this successful for our students?
So in Arizona, we have a very large amount of high-tech companies that directly use artificial intelligence. And some of those are Intel, Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, General Dynamics, Microchip. I mean, that's just to name a few.
It's going to make a societal impact as well when students start reaching out to the community and working on various projects.
The big advantage I see in having the program here and at our level is that the Maricopa Community Colleges is a very diverse place. And one of the big risks in AI is that if all the work is done from just one particular perspective, that the AI can become biased, just as people can become biased. And so it's really important to have, a diversity of voices participating in this.
So to be able to prepare students and the workforce to meet this need, it's just very exciting to be a part of that.
Supporting the faculty to have the tools and the resources to move to the next level of innovation. This is how we make it happen in Maricopa.
Oh, Carlos, you're on mute.
Okay, sorry. Thank you, Rachel. And as you can see, the faculty has been a fantastic partner. The administration has been a fantastic partner with us as this journey together. I'm just very grateful for the partnership with Maricopa. Let me go down here. I think my screen, here we go. So why develop this program? The video kind of talked a lot about this, right? And I've talked about this. It's an emerging technology. It's accelerating very quickly with the tools. We want to democratize access to the tools, and we want to offer an opportunity for different voices and experiences, right, to use this technology. And then the skills portion of it, because at the end of the day, right, can you get a job with these skills? I think those are going to be the questions that kind of come up, and who's hiring for these skills. So it's very important for us to make sure that we're communicating the skills and we're working with our partners around what's the best way of enabling those skills. And for us, right, community colleges are probably the most democratic system that we have, right? It's open. We have high school students. We have students that are going through college. We have professionals that are going back to Reskilled, right? So it's really a very important function that it plays in our society. And this is really, for us, it was a really good choice to focus on community colleges. And with that, I'm gonna hand it over to Dr. Gonzalez.
Good morning and or good afternoon to some of you, and thank you, Carlos. I want to first begin by thanking Rachel for inviting us and working with us to bring this presentation to fruition. I also want to thank Intel for choosing to partner with us. There are many other places, many other colleges that they could have chosen, but they decided to come to us, and it's been a good partnership so far. So thank you, Carlos, and to the Intel team for your support. I've been serving as interim chancellor since January 25th of 2020. That would be this year, of course. So my involvement and knowledge of this partnership leading up to that was extremely minimal, but I've learned about it in a hurry, and I've been very pleased with the amount of work that's been done. And so with that said, I'd just like to share sort of a personal story of what drives our question and our work here, because the question is why did we develop an academic certificate and associate's degree program specifically around artificial intelligence? I mean, you know, who wouldn't want to partner with a major worldwide organization like Intel? You know, that's a no-brainer for us, but why specifically in artificial intelligence? I think back to my own higher education experience, and I went to college in the early 90s to become a math. I eventually ended up becoming a math teacher. And I remember hearing some of my professors at that time talk about this thing that was really beginning to explode called the internet. And believe it or not, through the early 90s, I was able to go through my entire bachelor's degree without using an email. And one of the sessions I remember in class was, we were hearing that this internet was going to be adding about 35% of the jobs that were going to be available in the next 10 to 15 years that weren't even created yet. And so the challenge before us as educators is, how do you go back into a classroom and begin to prepare your students without access to some of these technologies to prepare for jobs that don't exist yet. And so I fast forward that today because that's been over 30 years ago. And today I hear artificial intelligence in the very same vein. We know it's there, we know it's around, we know it's coming, but how do we prepare our students? And the answer to that question is that we partner with the people who are creating this technology. And so that's what you see here. And as was mentioned in the video, we bring diversity to bring various forms of thought and contribution to the development of these sort of programs and trainings around these programs. Of course, as a community college, we have access. The Maricopa Community College System serves more than 200,000 students annually across 10 independently accredited colleges in Maricopa County. We're affordable at $85 a credit hour. You just can't beat that value and that dollar that you're going to get when you decide to come to Maricopa. And then, you know, we're working with an innovative organization, and we'd like to think of ourselves as being innovative. A few years ago, I got to listen in on a session of the CEO of Barrows Neurological Institute. That's a world-renowned institution here in Phoenix that works on specifically the brain and spine. And the new CEO, whose name is Dr. Lawton at the time, discussed the introduction of an artificial intelligence center, research center on their campus. And one of the things that he shared in that moment that has really stuck with me, and it really made me go back as a college president at the time and think, we've got to be doing something different. He shared that in looking at the imaging, they were using artificial intelligence to detect issues with images. And what I mean by that is that typically an image is done, and then you've got a person who can take that and make some determinations based on that image. What he was describing was the use of artificial intelligence that within 1 to 2 minutes, the system could compare and contrast this image to more than 200,000 other images in its database in just a matter of minutes, and come back with a greater degree of accuracy than humans that were doing it. So I've thought since then, we've got to go back and do something different. You've probably have all read the book Robot Proof. If you haven't, I highly encourage that. My main drive and focus and thoughts around Maricopa and students that we serve is how do we ensure that our students leave us robot proof? As you heard from the speakers and as Carlos has already said, AI is going to permeate every facet of our lives. All you've got to do is look around, and it's likely you've got a device in front of you in your hands or that you drive around in each day that is already using artificial intelligence. If you would go to the next slide, Carlos, please. One of the things that we're learning when we do our own research on what the future of work looks like, it's more about the skill set that you bring and perhaps less about the totality of your education. You know, we think about someone who's earned an associate's and then a bachelor's degree in, say, accounting, for example. And I apologize if we've got any accountants on the call. I'm not singling you out. But if you become an accountant and you stay in that vein of work, then you're isolated to that line of work. If you study to become an accountant, but you've picked up education on project management and you've picked up some education on marketing, for example, now you've expanded your skill set. What we see here is an opportunity for our students to pick up this skill set that can be broadly used across the industry sectors. And if we're looking to make students robot proof, and if we're looking to make them marketable in the marketplace, then that's what this is about. So here's an opportunity. You don't have to have an IT background. You should have an interest, you should have a like in it for sure, but we're trying to create this opportunity for students to come in and gain this skill set that can be applied across the various sectors that are out there. And I think that brings us to one of our final slides, Carlos, if you would advance to the next one, that shows you some of the outcomes to date up to this point. Here's the thing. As large of a system as we are in the state of Arizona and across the country for that matter, if we truly believe that we have a role in the development of workforce and contributions to economic development, then we have to ask ourselves a question: how do we take this beyond, our work with Maricopa and specifically with Intel? So, in addition to the outcomes that you see here, which are fabulous outcomes, by the way, we're already asking ourselves the question, what else can we do? You know, we've got a neighboring community college district in Tucson. As one of the professors mentioned, Raytheon is a company that is headquartered in Tucson. And that tells me that we should be looking to our neighbors to see how we can bring Pima into this fold, and then, you know, give ourselves access to an additional nearly 100,000 students, which means just that many more workers. And that would certainly help Intel reach their 30 million people that they plan to eventually reach, Carlos. So we want to have that conversation. And we're currently in pilot phase right now. That's a limited pilot. We plan to open it up publicly in the spring. I also have on this call and invited Ms. Darcy Ramfros, the Chief Officer for Workforce and Economic Development for Maricopa County Community Colleges, and also have Daniel Barajas, who's a District Deputy Chief Director for Workforce Development. These two were highly engaged in the very beginning of this work, and I've got them available to answer any questions when we do get to the Q&A part. But I'd be remiss if I didn't thank the faculty and staff and administration and our district office employees that worked with Intel to make this happen, specifically at Estrella Mountain Community College and at Chandler Gilbert Community College. So I thank you, and I thank you for this opportunity to share this exciting partnership. We're so pleased to be working with Carlos and his team at Intel, and we hope to be able to come back to you someday and report that we're getting close to that 30 million mark, right, Carlos? I think that takes us to the last slide, unless there was something you wanted to add there, Carlos, on our outcomes to date.
No, I just again, a big thank you for the partnership, and I think we'll get more into the questions in terms of what has kept us together in this journey. And, you know, we've both taken risks along the way and sped things up. And that's kind of the new world that we live in. And when we started this, it was pre-COVID, and COVID happened, so we had to make some adjustments. So I just want to really thank the Maricopa team for their partnership and their flexibility, because it's been fantastic. And Rachel, with that, I think we'll turn it over to you, and we'll wait for the Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you so much to both of you. We will hold for Q&A. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Jen Worth at AACC to introduce our next speaker.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much, Rachel, and thanks to the previous presenters. As you guys all know, the purpose of this network was to give you guys strategic and sort of courageous behaviors to consider in your own respective states related to reskilling and recovery. And as we were planning for this session in particular, NGA and AACC were collaborating, and I had heard quite a good bit of information about Walmart and their activities, and how I thought it was appropriate to elevate not just their company's strategic activities as it related to partnership development, but also some of their practical resources. So we thought it was a nice sort of complement to Intel, which has one perspective, and Walmart, which has a different industry focus. But in seeking the right speaker to talk about these, we thought Sean Thurman, who is the Director of Global Public Policy at Walmart, who leads all their workforce education, labor, and employment policy efforts, was the right speaker. In addition to being at Walmart, prior to that, he was actually the labor policy advisor for Chairman Lamar Alexander in Tennessee, and he also was, through that work, working with the Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions. But I asked Sean to speak specifically about two things. One is the symbiotic relationships that Walmart created with a bunch of other companies around the country during that COVID initial sort of response. And those symbiotic relationships, whether or not you form those exact same kinds with Walmart, there's something there for you to listen and learn from and think about in your respective states. Equally of note, the hiring practices that Walmart used to do with their HR department were rather extensive. And through the COVID experience, not that there's any good that came of it, but they learned how to compress these activities down in such a way that it made sense for you to start to consider working with companies in different facets. So with that, I'll turn it over to Sean and ask him to start to share a little bit about the Walmart experience, and then would be delighted to turn us into Q&A when it's appropriate. So thanks, Sean.
Great, thanks, Jen, and thanks everybody, and thanks to the network for having me here today to talk a little bit about some of this. different perspectives from different industries, absolutely, but already just in the last presentation, seeing the similarity between some themes. The focus on digital skills is incredibly important to an industry that is changing and rapidly, and even more so in this current environment, to operate in an omni-channel fashion, which is corporate speak for basically combining the physical store shopping experience with online shopping and how they meet in the middle when it comes to pickup and delivery and all those things that have helped people be just a little bit safer and healthier, hopefully, during this process. The other theme being speed. Speed is increasingly important, and it is one of the themes, both with some of the ways that we've changed the hiring process, but also with how quickly we decided we had an opportunity to help in a time of need. So as Jen said, I'm on our public policy team, and I work on these issues for the business. I work closely with our HR teams, our people teams, and other parts of the business, and with our government relations folks. And I sort of run that cross traffic in between, and have speak two languages, essentially, helping both kind of have insight of what's coming around the corner and what we need to be focused on. So I'm going to go ahead and walk and chew gum at the same time here and try to share my screen. So go ahead, and here we go. Is everybody seeing that okay? All right, thumbs up. So in the midst of the pandemic, as an essential business, as a business that never really shut down, we experienced and continue to experience unprecedented customer demand. The initial rush on essentials and a lot of that continues, and we're prepping for fall and winter accordingly. But that customer demand put a lot of pressure on our stores and on our associates. I've had some colleagues from the field share that it was, for a while there, it was like a Black Friday event every single day. The stores were absolutely slammed, and as the pandemic spread and as the lockdowns ensued, we knew we needed to bolster the workforce just to keep up. But we were also watching very closely the economic crisis that followed the health crisis, and knew that we had an opportunity to help bridge employment for folks, to satisfy an immediate need for employment as things shifted so rapidly. So we committed to hire 150,000 people into full-time, part-time, and temporary roles across the country and across the company. I'll talk a little bit more probably about the stores here, but also think about our supply chain, our distribution centers, fulfillment centers, trucking, and we also just announced an additional hiring commitment for the seasonal rush that we expect coming up shortly. We quickly reached the 150,000 commitment and extended it to 250,000. And just as of last week, the number eclipsed 700,000 new associates in just a matter of 6 months. The vast majority of which are still coming to us due to experiencing furloughs, displacements, and other employment-related impacts due to COVID-19. Like I said, many folks came to us from a need from that standpoint. Heavy hit industries definitely trended higher: hospitality, restaurants, retail, travel, I think airlines. And while they came to bridge the gap there, a lot of folks are deciding to stay with us. We have seen a certain percentage of folks converting from those temporary roles to more permanent roles. About 20% of the temporary cohort has converted to full-time role or to part-time and full-time roles. And some have even moved into management positions. So that we, it's been in, again, all the appropriate disclaimers about the difficulty of these times, but it has, it's allowed us to tap into a talent pool and at least offer the proposition that you're great and we can continue to use you. So we have proactively partnered with more than 70 companies who have had to furlough or displace their workforce. These partnerships are pretty loose. They are, they're bilateral B2B conversations. Why did we decide to go that route? It was really the urgency of it, the displacement on one end from one company and the need to hire, essentially trying to streamline that as much as possible, but certainly have also worked with a number of other entities in the community. If there's, just put that out here to this group, given the backgrounds that are on this call, if there's interest, we can certainly work on having subsequent conversations with anyone that's sort of interested in helping to disseminate the need that we have. In addition to the individual companies, we were also one of the first companies to participate in an Accenture platform that was created called People and Work Connect, which is another B2B as it was initially set up, but it pools workforce information by categories. So think location, experience, and companies can join the platform who have a need to find a bridge for their workforce or that have an opportunity for folks to take advantage of opportunities at their company. And so going forward, and I only want to speak so much about it just because it is an Accenture-led platform, and I would highly recommend that the network kind of consider talking to them more about how that's operating on a day-to-day basis. But I do know from some of the things that they've said is that they're looking to add public sector jobs to this platform, and they're looking to steadily increase the number of companies that are participating as well. So while we've been working with a number of companies and we've been joining, platforms and other opportunities to further, disseminate the job needs, we also have to be really careful. We want to make sure that regardless of where an applicant came from or where they learned about the opportunity, that we, avoid any preferential treatment for a particular applicant or for a particular company. So we haven't necessarily signed agreements or commitments with different employers, although we're working with them very closely. But we just want to make sure we've got a fair and consistent selection process going on. I'll talk about this in just a moment, but we've streamlined an assessment that's focused on performance and retention and experience. And so we don't want to preclude anyone just because they didn't come from this or that company. Because we ultimately want to hire the right people, the right skill sets for the job. So as far as, I've shared with the coordinators of the webinar just a couple resources, one from Accenture and one is sort of the one sheet that we put together that has been distributed publicly about the types of roles that we're looking for, how to apply, where to go for additional questions, and you all we'll get those sent around to you all, and more than happy to follow up on any of these aspects. But I wanted to quickly move to the hiring process that Jen talked about. As she noted, the traditional process for hiring, even in frontline positions, which have traditionally been very low barrier access points to employment, not requiring a high school diploma, et cetera. So there was, we were already well aware of that, and there was a team that was working on looking at ways that we could expedite that process. And the analysts were showing that we were losing good candidates. We were losing talent in the days and weeks between application and hiring. And so, I mean, that's obviously a problem, as we're in pretty stiff competition to find the right talent around the country. So a project team that was called Project 24 was put together, and the goal was to shorten that amount of time for hiring in the most ideal cases in 24 hours or less. The crisis obviously accelerated the acceleration that the team was looking at. And because of that, they were able to make some pretty quick changes. And within 2 weeks of the original 150,000 hiring commitments, we were able to actually start rolling out the streamlined process. So if it's all right, I'll just quickly unpack the process a little bit. The team basically looked at friction points in the process, places where people could potentially decide to not go further, whether it's the number of clicks to get through an application, or it's the amount of hours, days spent trying to set up interviews and arrange in-persons. Obviously, in-person was something that was that was changed and served multiple purposes during the crisis. So they noticed that a lot of time was spent on the in-person interviews. Especially there were messages going back and forth, scheduling, rescheduling, but they found that implementing this pre-employment assessment, a very simple assessment that's kind of designed to figure out who's an excellent fit, down to a candidate that would be kind of not competitive. And that, combined with a phone interview, really essentially did away with the need to set up a more formal process. So the phone became an incredible resource. The assessment was a great resource. And then for our managers, for the hiring folks in the field, we implemented a system where we had a database of candidates that were already in the system, who had already applied, who had already completed the assessment, who went so far as to indicate their preferences for particular hours and for particular positions. And then when a need arose in the field, rather than post a job, wait for applications to come in, set up the interview process, there was sort of a ready-made, pre-assessed set of options that you could quickly move to and start the interview process. So that helped in the field with all the with the heavy demand that we were facing in the field. It took the hiring process and made it much simpler for them to quickly address the need and move back to whatever they needed to do at that given time to serve customers and implement safety protocols and all of those things. The other thing is a small thing, but definitely helped, again, cut days out of this process, was condensing orientation to just a couple hours instead of your whole first day. It doesn't mean that there aren't subsequent trainings and getting people skilled and trained for particular jobs, but just that initial welcome to Walmart, here's what we do, here's our philosophy. We were able to cut that drastically and offer it more frequently. It used to just be on Mondays. And so for someone hired on Tuesday, they'd have to wait a whole week before they could really get started. And so, some of these things are just so simple, but when you have to implement them at scale and get it done consistently, that's where the challenge has been in the past. So, everyone was moving in the same direction on this, and so I think that really helped. So once that whole new process was set, the Project 24 team conducted Zoom trainings to the field, to the folks that are doing the hiring, explained how the process works, how it was going to help them out, and and the time just started to fall in terms of our averages. So our average time from identifying a hiring need to making an offer dropped from about 2 weeks, again, average, 2 weeks to 3 days. While that's the average, same-day hiring has been a routine thing. In fact, my niece, who wasn't able to finish her senior year at high school, she found that out in April and had some time on her hands between remote class to finish up, went in and was hired same day at a store near our hometown. So I know it's working. You know, just in summary, we're super proud of the role we've been able to play in the midst of the crisis. It's great to see that folks who've come to us in a time of need have decided to stay. It's great to see that they're moving towards you know, advancement and other opportunities in the company. They have stepped up in so many ways. They've provided some relief to our existing workforce. They've, you know, hopefully been able to help their families and can, you know, as they need an opportunity to access further income. And you know, I hope when we move beyond the COVID era, the phase that we're in right now, I hope that this is one of the, among other things, the testing sites, the other financial commitments that we've made. I hope that this is something that folks take away from the process, similar to kind of how the company has stepped up in natural disaster situations, hurricanes, wildfires, things like that. I hope that it's a legacy. I hope we continue to improve these hiring processes. And I want, you know, it's our expectation that, you know, anyone that's coming to us for employment and just sort of the simple need for income also has the ability to access our training and upskilling, that has the opportunity to potentially take advantage of our Live Better You post-secondary. I don't want to call it college because we've done a number of things, including skilled trades. Yeah.
Thanks, Sean.
Yeah.
No,
So
this is wonderful.
yeah.
I'm really grateful to you. Thank you for taking the time. So friends, you've all heard two exceptionally, you know, I think forward-thinking industry partners that are in pretty prominent headspaces. And again, you represent a variety of states that have the desire to be creative, courageous, and also strategic. So this is the moment for you to lean in and ask questions. You had an exceptional model from Intel and some community college executives. Equally, you heard from another company that was trying to sort of reframe and restage how they reskill and rehire people. But you know, these things are applicable in your communities. If you do the direct map up, or you guys want to go in a different direction and just use it as a strategy. So please, this is the time to ask questions. Type them in the chat box. We have a lot of expertise here, and or feel free to ask a question to your peers. I do believe that there were a couple that came through during the conversation. So Rachel, do you want to, should you or I can take them through? But
sure, yeah, I saw one from Fred. That's the only one I saw, but I can read that off. Thanks, Fred. Fred was from Alaska. He's asking about Maricopa community colleges. Do you have an agreement with employers to make hiring students conditional on their completion of their degree to prevent early dropouts from the degree program, such that they can be hired, but must also have the schedule and supports necessary for degree completion? I know this can be an issue in these high demand fields. So have you done any thinking around that?
We've had some thoughts around that, and specifically when typically I serve as Gateway Community College, and we're considered to be the workforce college inside the Maricopa system, and that's something of interest to us. I can think about specifically one of the programs where we were experiencing this, and I don't want to say who the partner is because I don't want to be incorrect, but before our students could finish a welding program, for example, they were being poached by this company. Just so that they had enough of a skill set to bring them into their organization, and students were leaving because if they could go out and suddenly begin to make $40,000 to $50,000 a year and just the week before not making much of anything, they're going to leave us. So we had to sit down with that company and say, look, it would be really important for these students to be able to finish the program that they start. And if you really want to help the student, and you really want to guarantee that they're going to come and work for your company, why don't you help by sponsoring them on the front end? Give them a scholarship to attend us, pay for their supplies, and then what you can get in return is a guarantee that they're going to come and work with you for at least a year, maybe 2 years. And we engaged in that sort of partnership, and it ended up working out really well. That's the only one I can think of that comes to mind, and it's been a few years for us since we've done that. But at a district level, you've got to keep in mind that, with 10 independently accredited institutions, we often have colleges that are partnering with organizations, and we might have more than one college that partners with the same organization, sometimes without us even knowing that. So we're trying to do a better job at a systems level to forge these sort of partnerships where we can start with a collaborative mindset in mind and bringing multiple colleges in together at the same time.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. We're getting quite a few questions about AI here. I'm going to go from this one from Eleni in Washington State. Are you looking at any possible interdisciplinary degrees or programs like a manufacturing or healthcare specific AI degree, since that can apply to so many different areas?
I would say that that's an excellent question. We're still in the pilot phase of this AI degree with Intel. But if I harken back to the discussion about being robot proof, it's exactly that. It's taking the skill set and infusing that into the curriculum of other programs. So I could very well see us begin to explore manufacturing, healthcare, and any other fields that incorporate AI. So that's a great question, and thank you for bringing that to the fore. Appreciate it.
Yeah, can I jump in here, Dr. Gonzalez? Because we have customers in all sorts of industry sectors, and healthcare and manufacturing are, I think those are the kind of two leading industries right now with AI. So we definitely want to continue the partnership with our community college partners and add, the certificates and more specializations as this goes by. Retail is also another one, Sean. I want to make sure that I didn't forget about you guys. But we expect that to continue, right? So definitely, this is not a one-time shot. We're just at the beginning of the collaboration.
Rachel, I think Dr. Rhodes has another good question that I suspect that a lot might ask, and it's around whether the associate's degree in AI is portable to colleges in other states. Anytime that we start a program, we begin with transfer in mind for our students. We have great agreements with our public universities and some of our private and for-profit universities in the state. So I would say, yes, these programs are portable within the state of Arizona. And because the state of Arizona does a good job of working with its neighboring states and other states across the country, I would venture to say that this should be portable. Obviously that's going to be up to the receiving university, but we do build it with that in mind.
Awesome. And do you also want to take the one about how the certificate degree, does it fold into the associates, and what jobs are you thinking the certificate will be, lead folks into as opposed to the associates?
I would like to bring either Darcy Renfro or Daniel into that, if you wouldn't mind, Rachel.
Sure, yeah, they should feel free to unmute and join the conversation.
Daniel?
Yes, I don't know if you can hear me.
We can.
Okay, thank you, sir. Yes, absolutely. When we designed the 5 core courses that compose our certificate, we certainly wanted to stack them into an associate's degree for immediate employment and certainly for university transfer. We're currently discussing that articulation with both Arizona State University and the University of Arizona. So that became a big part of it in terms of what we wanted to do. And I'm sorry, I know that there was another portion of that question.
The jobs that are available with the certificates, Daniel.
Okay. One of the things that's really interesting about AI, and I think where we started in partnership with Intel, was the idea of the different markets that we would be approaching. And we know that there's a large incumbent workforce market that is looking to upskill in this space. So if you think about the incumbent Intel worker, this might be somebody that already has a bachelor's degree in some other discipline. And so, I think part of I don't know if genius is probably going to stretch too far, but, I think a smart part of what we designed was with prerequisites in mind, we can have somebody that already has a bachelor's degree or maybe even a graduate degree come back into our core courses and upskill so that they're now, functionally majoring in AI and become marketable in that space. And so in the first cohort that we ran of students, we actually do have a graduate student from each ASU and the University of Arizona participating for that exact reason. And so lastly, as it was indicated in the presentation, I hate to put it this way, but this is what Dr. Gonzalez was covering, this idea that rather than job focus, we're looking at skills focus, because we have people coming in from multiple disciplines, whether they be architecture or business or, it's a very diverse market. We see that they're upskilling and wanting to take on this AI understanding in order to move forward in a diversity of job opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is Darcy Renfro. I would only add to that, that's exactly right, that we are actually, as we move forward past this pilot initial cohort, working with our local chambers of commerce to understand better from employers what other types of occupations outside of the ones that Daniel identified in the intels and those that clearly have a nexus to the particular employer. What is the level of interest and across what sectors within the local employers? And so we're working on that right now as well.
Hey, Rachel, this is Jen. Since we only have a couple minutes left, why don't I wrap the last two questions into the question for Sean? Thanks. So we had two, Sean, and I know you can see them, but the first one was, now that you've had these quick hiring practices, any talent development or training needs that you see based on the that sort of incoming cohort, but then also go straight into, if you don't mind, how would Walmart or how would any of these states that are willing to coordinate with you to talk about rapid reskilling want to engage in that dialogue so that the community college systems and the workers can get into non-retail career pathways? So for example, a nursing student who wants to earn income while completing their program. So any or all, but we only have about 4 minutes left, please.
Okay, I will, I'll take the second part first. I think so in addition to myself, in addition to the HR experts in the company, we also have a team that's focused on state and local, both from a government public policy standpoint, but also community engagement. I informed that team of 20 to 30 folks based all around the country that I was going to be speaking here, and just kind of put them on notice. There may be some opportunities to continue to talk about these and other hiring opportunities that we have, which I want to be clear are, yes, it's an opportunity for a job. It's an opportunity to get income in an extreme time of need. But we also provide a certain degree of wraparound supports from a skilling standpoint, from a lifelong learning standpoint, and we've had a lot of success from a training and upskilling standpoint in our academies programs. We created 200 physical training and upskilling locations and leadership development locations around the country. And anyone advancing in our store system goes through academies training, and it can be everything from public speaking and developing kind of the soft skills to understanding how to manage your profit and loss, how to, there's a business element to it, there's demographics, it's fairly sophisticated and growing. And other parts of the business, like our supply chain, are catching on to the value of that when you have incumbent workers who are interested in continuing to develop themselves and move up the ladder or take other opportunities. And so they're rolling it out as well. So we're seeing that opportunity exists for anyone who is looking for permanence with the company. As I said, we have a certain amount of temporary work going on right now, which is unique to us. We typically do not have a temporary workforce of this size. And in the last couple of years, we haven't really had one at all, because we've decided to give those available hours during holiday rushes and et cetera to people who are trying to build up their schedule. So we know that some of those folks are going to move on or move back to what they were doing before. And we also have to make sure that we have room for people who are potentially coming back to us. The COVID crisis has affected everybody in the community, and there have been some folks who have opted to step away from frontline retail work right now, and we're allowing folks to do that and come back. So with respect to that, I'm sorry, I got so deep into the second question. Can you remind me of the first? And I'll cover that real quick.
Absolutely. The question really was the individuals that were coming in quickly and hired fast. Any specific talent or training development needs?
Yeah.
We probably have only 30 seconds, right?
Okay. We haven't been able to necessarily roll out revamped programs or anything that specifically addresses them, but we're following this cohort extremely closely, and that's going to be a constant reassessment because as this situation stretches, we know that we're going to be in this situation for the foreseeable future. So the short answer is yes, we're gathering data, we're trying to gather insights, and we will reincorporate that back into our workforce strategy 100%.
Great, thank you for that. So Rachel, to you for organizing the first set, and to our friends across the country. I want to just thank everybody, and I know that we're going to have this archived. The attachments will go out to everyone after, and just as always, we will have the summary notes. So thanks to all the speakers, thanks to all the attendees. And Rachel, anything else we need to do before we say goodbye?
Nope, we'll see you guys next week to talk about quality credentials. And thank you again so much to our speakers.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.